Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Emotional Autoimmunity Podcast. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, then I'm so glad that you've joined me. A little bit about me: I am a counselor, therapist, and hypnotherapist living in Melbourne, Australia. I have 3 different autoimmune conditions. I have Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, antiphospholipid syndrome, and I also have celiac disease, and I've been living with chronic illness now for over 5 years. And when chronic illness came into my life, I was disabled physically and cognitively, and I didn't know at that stage if any sort of recovery was going to be possible for me, and I didn't know what the rest of my life was going to be. So emotional autoimmunity was born out of my experience living with chronic illness. And because it hit me so hard and just completely derailed my life and changed everything in my life, I felt completely alone and I felt completely isolated, and I had no idea how to even to begin to deal with this, how to adapt to it, how to start rebuilding my life, how to get the right mindset to help me attempt to recover whatever health was available to me. And it was probably the most difficult, traumatizing experience that I've ever been through in my life. And my life has certainly had its fair share of trauma. So it was so difficult for me that I didn't want to see so many struggling people, and I saw so many struggling people everywhere I looked, on internet forums, in Facebook groups. There was just so many people with my diseases, with other sorts of autoimmune diseases, that who were really struggling, who were drowning, who were so depressed, who were so traumatized. Some were thinking about committing suicide. Their relationships were ending. They were feeling like a burden. They didn't even know how to begin to start to help themselves or where to even turn for help. And when I started to work things out and I started to make some progress and I started reconnecting back to all of my skills as a therapist and getting the right sort of mindset, then I wanted to start talking about my experiences, because I didn't want people to feel alone. I didn't want people to feel isolated. I didn't want anybody to have to go through what I'd experienced and how I felt. And that's basically how my page started, how the blog started, and everything sort of evolved from there. And what I do is that now I work pretty much exclusively with people who have chronic illness, either with them on their own or with their partners. I do it all 100% online, and I do it around the world. So I work in America, in the United Kingdom, across Europe, Spain, New Zealand, throughout Australia, as I said, where I'm located, New Zealand. So pretty much anywhere that we can make the time work and we've got a good internet connection, um, that's how I do it. And I do it using a process called Zoom. And I do offer everybody a 25 minutes of my time absolutely for free. So what you can do is book in your free discovery session. This isn't a sales call. Basically what happens if you want to see a therapist, the only way that you can find out if they're the right therapist for you or find out about how they work or if they're a good match for what you want, is to pay to spend an hour in their office, and you can waste a lot of money doing that. So that's basically why I offer this time. So you can get to meet me, you can ask your questions, I can see if you're the right sort of client for me. So it's like a mutual interviewing process, I guess. I can find out a little bit more about the challenges that you're facing, and then I tell you which program that I offer would give you the best results, and I email you all the information, and then after that I leave it up to you. I don't follow up. You decide if you want to work with me, And if you do, then you get in touch, return, my email. And if you don't, well, then you don't have to respond. So that's really how a little bit about my story and how this podcast came into view. And I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic, I guess, because I've been going through a really, really bad flare with celiac, which is something that I have not experienced for a very long time. And the subject of this podcast today is about why it's okay to stop. And this is a really important concept for everybody with chronic illness to start to understand. So let's tell you a little bit about what's behind this and why it is so important, and some of the things that have been highlighted for me during this most recent flare. Things that I already knew were important, things that I already acknowledged, that I already do things about. But because this has been such a really horrible flare, and I haven't had something like this for a long time, it has really underscored why these things are so important when you have chronic illness. So generally what's happened with my health journey is that I have got to a fairly stable, I guess you could say, place. Over the past, 5.5 years, I have made major changes to every area of my life, including diet, which has changed multiple times, and I'm still playing with diet and tweaking that. Everything in my household, what I use, what I put on my skin, um, how I sleep, managing my stress, the way I think, the mindset that I have, pretty much everything has had to change. And as you guys know, when you have chronic illness, we are all so different that there is no one answer that works absolutely the same way for everyone. We're all like one big individual science experiment that we're constantly working on. And that can be the really frustrating part of it, because if there was just one process you could follow where you could be guaranteed some sort of results or improvement in your health, I mean, wouldn't that be great? But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And I saw a post recently going around Facebook and Instagram saying something like, we're not all in the same boat. And that was applied to what's going on with the coronavirus pandemic that we're all experiencing and living with at the moment. And I think that's very relevant, right? Because we can all sort of tend to want to lump ourselves together, all of us with chronic illness, all of us, whether it's autoimmune disease or not, lump us all together and assume that we're all the same, right? And while there are similarities, definitely there are similarities in what we experience with autoimmune conditions. There are things like flares, there are things like brain fog, there are things like gut issues, there are things like pain, there are things like constantly changing energy levels, all those sorts of things that we share. The way that the disease expresses itself from person to person is very different, which is why you can, put 10 people with the same disease in the one room, and while they have some commonalities, they're actually probably going to have a lot more differences than sames in how they do that. So while we're not all in the same boat, the other good part of the analogy is we're all in the same storm, all right? So the storm is the same, but the boats we're in, which is the different things we're dealing with, the different challenges that we have, and that means all of the things in our lives, right? Our relationships, the way we think about things, any emotional issues that we have, what our outlook on life is, whether we suffer from anxiety or depression, what mindset is, what sort of support that you have in your life. All of those things really add to the experience of what's available in your boat, which then leads to how well you're going to be able to sail that boat to get to your destination. So What's been brought home to me during this whole celiac flare, now if you have celiac disease, your experience is probably different from mine, but my celiac disease was the last diagnosis that I got. And when you have multiple autoimmune diseases, they all kind of blend together. So it's hard to figure out when you're going through a flare, like what's contributing to that. Like, is it the Hashimoto's? Is it the antiphospholipid syndrome? Is it the celiac? Is it a mix of all of them? It's hard to know which one is being affected or which one is being triggered and why it's being triggered. But in this case, for me, the celiac disease stood out very, very clearly. So I'm still on the tail end of it. And it was bad enough that I actually had to stop. I had to stop doing things. And this is always a process that I've got to renegotiate with myself, because I think what we tend to do, and this seems to happen just from what I've observed through working with clients and through my own life experience, that women tend to do this a lot more than men. So as women, we tend to not give ourselves permission to stop. And what I mean by stop is to stop doing things for other people, stop working, drop the responsibilities that you're carrying and focus on yourself, right? Focus on yourself. And it's really important when you have chronic illness that you are able to do this, because what we do know is that a stressed body can't heal. And stress is created basically by what you're thinking about and how you're feeling and how you're viewing your life. And stress creates inflammation. Inflammation creates symptoms, right? And when you're inflamed, your body is not in the right space to heal. It can't heal while you've got inflammation going on, which is why dealing with stress and getting the right mindset is so important. And so what's been happening with my own health, I've seen gradual improvements from year to year to year to year. And honestly, in some things it seems so slow and so incremental that I'm only just starting to notice that things are beginning to change. And because things had begun to change for me to the point where I was able to start doing things with consistency, right? And when you live with chronic illness, you know how amazing that is, right? To be able to have a certain level of energy every day to count on is almost miraculous, right? It's a really, really good feeling. And so because my energy levels and the way my brain has been functioning has been reasonably consistent, I've set these habits, and I've set these days for things. So I have my days for doing my podcast, and I have my days for doing my blog, and I have my days for doing my Facebook Lives over at my Emotional Autoimmunity Facebook page. And, my days for sending my emails to my VIP people, subscribers on my list. So I had all that organized and I was getting efficiency, right? I was getting consistency, and being consistent feels good. Like, it really does feel good to be able to say, okay, Thursday I'm doing this, Friday I'm doing that, and then actually getting it done. Like, it feels wonderful, and I certainly don't take it for granted. So what had been happening when I got this celiac flare is I just started feeling like all of my gut was just so swollen and inflamed and sore. And I don't know about you, but anything to do with gut pain, it just wipes me out. Like, they say that the gut is the second brain. There's a lot of neurons and receptors, neural receptors and things in the gut as well. So it affects how I think, it affects how I feel. I feel nauseous, I feel in pain. It's worse at night, so then I don't sleep well. I don't sleep well. I feel even worse during the day. My digestion is all out of whack. If I eat, it hurts. If I don't eat, it hurts. So It was just really, really bad. And it got to around like Thursday. Thursday is generally when I do my podcast, record my podcast. And I just thought, I can do this. Like, I could really push myself to do it, but I don't want to. I don't want to. I need to stop, right? I just need to stop. I need to stop everything and only focus on what's essential. I need to sleep. I need to rest. I really got to give myself some time to heal. But then I had to go through that process, right? Because I'd gained some momentum and because I was in this, pattern of being able to do things. And because I know that, there's people waiting for the podcast and there's people waiting for the lives that I do on my Facebook page and there's people waiting for my emails, I think what can happen is we get so caught up in what everybody else is expecting from us, right? We get caught up in this feeling of feeling responsible for other people. And that can be a real trap, because what ends up happening is you end up making everybody else's feelings more important than your own. And so you keep pushing through and pushing through and pushing through with less energy, and then more pain and more inflammation. And what happens is you're going to end up even worse. So you're going to delay your healing, because in order to heal, we have to stop. We have to stop. We have to rest. We have to really focus on healing. We have to let go of all of that responsibility, all of that feeling of expectation, all of that feeling that, there are people depending on you. And so I went through this process with myself and just, realized that if I don't post on my Facebook page, nothing bad is going to happen. If I don't get this blog post out or I don't do the podcast, then a few people might be thinking, oh, wow, where's the next episode? It normally comes out, but nobody's life is going to be radically changed by that. Nobody is actually going to suffer as a result of that. And I am more important. My health is more important. And it has to be that way. Like, it has to be that way, because when you have chronic illness, you have got to put yourself first. And there is very good reason for this. And if you think about this logically, you're going to understand exactly how this works. Like, this is one of the mind shift tools that you really need to start picking up and changing, right? So whatever you are doing for yourself right now, the people around you are going to directly or indirectly get the benefit. Let's use benefit, right? The benefit of that, or the offshoot of that. They're going to get that. So if you are not looking after yourself and you are not giving yourself time and you are not stopping doing things in order to give yourself the time and the rest you need to recover and heal, then everybody is getting the benefit of that, right? So they're getting the benefits, so-called, of however you feel. So if you're feeling that you're pushing through, and if you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling in pain, you've got brain fog, you've got no energy, you've got no motivation, your mood is flat, you're really stressed, you're really grumpy, you've got no patience, you've got no attention span, then everybody around you will receive the impact of that. That's just how it happens, right? That's what happens. They are going to be exposed to whatever it is that you're feeling. So if you are looking after yourself, and if you are stopping doing things that are not really necessary, especially things that other people are more than capable of doing for themselves, and you start feeling better, so you start recovering some health and your inflammation levels go down and you start getting a little bit more energy and your brain starts working properly again and you're in a better mood and you start to find some joy in your life again and some appreciation, then everybody around you gets the benefit of that. So one of the things that we can get caught up on is we don't want to let people down. We don't want people to feel bad, all of those different sorts of things. But if you don't stop and put yourself first, then you're not going to give the people around you what it is that you actually want to give them. In fact, you're going to give them the opposite of that. So what you need to think about, or I would encourage you to think about, is where are you putting your energy? And are you putting your energy into things that you really need to stop, right? Or to give yourself permission to stop. And these can be things like if you're giving your energy to friends or relatives or people around you who are not really deserving of your energy, right? Don't really have your best interests at heart, or they're not really good friends, or you're the one doing all the giving, or you're the one doing all the work, or you're the one running around after them, then that's something you can consider stopping, right? Because it's draining you. It's draining you of your time. It's draining you of your energy. It's draining you of your health. If you are doing things for your children or your partner or other friends or family members, they're more than capable of doing for themselves. I mean, maybe they're just used to you doing that. Maybe that's what you've always done. But when chronic illness comes into your life, things have to change and priorities need to change. So that's something that you need to consider stopping as well and changing. So just looking at all of the things that are draining you. And I know a lot of you are going to be thinking at this moment, well, I can't afford to stop. Like I can't afford to stop. I have to work. I've got my family. I've got my partner. I've got my children. I've got my responsibilities, right? Okay, that's fair enough. But if you don't start stopping when you need to, like when it's still an option, when you realize you're in a flare, or when you realize you're starting to push, and you know if you keep pushing, you are going to create a flare, or if you keep doing that for long enough, your body will stop you. You won't have a choice. Your body will stop you. Now, whether that means that you end up in a massive, long-lasting flare, whether that means you end up being hospitalized for something, it is much better for you to assume control of that than to just let it and allow it to happen so that your body is going to stop you. Because if your body is put in the position where it's going to stop you, then it's going to be a really slow, long process back to where you were. And the people around you, they will manage. They will find a way to manage. You can trust me on that. It might be inconvenient, right? They might not enjoy it, but they will manage. They will cope because they're going to have to. They're going to have to. And you can think of it as giving them an opportunity to get some much needed life skills, right? Everyone should know how to cook. Everyone should know how to prepare a meal for themselves. Everyone should know how to do basic cleaning and take responsibility for things. Now, unless you are, a mother or a parent of young children, you don't have any support, you don't have a partner, you don't have any family support, I mean, that's a difficult position to be in. I know what it's like to do that. I've been a single mother twice over, and it's really, really hard. And I am really blessed now to be the age that I am, and my children to be off my hands and adults and responsible for themselves. So my younger son still lives with me. He can cook his own meals and he's living his own life and doing his own things. So my days of being actively hands-on parenting are done, which I'm very grateful for, especially now that I have chronic illness. But unless you're in a position where you don't have any help whatsoever, then you do have an opportunity to stop. The only thing that is stopping you from stopping is feelings of guilt or feelings of not wanting to hurt other people or worrying about disappointing other people and letting them down. So you are more important. You need to be more important, because remember, what you ultimately want is you want to be of value and benefit to the people around you. You want to be actively enjoying life with them and contributing and helping and sharing in the love and the joy and all of the good things that are there in life. And you cannot do that unless you are actively managing and protecting your health and your energy, because your energy is like gold. It is the currency now that is the most important thing to you. So your energy needs to be protected. So basically what I did was I just stopped. I just announced on my page that I was not well. I was in the middle of a flare. There'd be no posts, there'd be no lives, there'd be no podcasts, there'd be no blogs, there'd be no emails, there'd be no nothing. And I would be back when I was back. And it was a relief. It was a real relief to do that. And like I said, I don't have any superpowers. What I do have is years of being a therapist. I know lots of different mind shifts and skills and strategies and things that have helped me get out of the massive hole and the trauma and the depression and the overwhelm that I was in when I became chronically ill, that have enabled me to have the right mindset to make the changes that I needed to make and to keep making those changes and to keep tweaking them and to keep indulging in my experiment into myself and what works best for me. But I'm not cured. I'm not in some magical nirvana place where, everything's wonderful with my health and I don't have any issues. I still deal with all of the issues of chronic illness, because chronic illness at the moment is incurable. And yes, we do have a lot of influence in terms of, how well we can live and how well we can feel. But at the end of the day, flares happen. You can be doing everything right, and flares happen. That's just the way it is. And what we need is the right mindset and the right skills and the right strategy to deal with what happens when you get a setback, to deal with what happens if you receive a new diagnosis, to deal with what happens when whatever protocol or new drug or new diet or whatever supplement you're trying isn't working, to have that resilience to keep going and keep shifting course and keep working out what gets the best results for you. This is a long distance. We're in this for the long term, and it is a process with so many changes that needs to be managed, especially in your mind, especially in your thought processes, especially in the way you view the disease, and especially in the way you view your relationship with your body, whether you see it as an enemy or as a friend, whether you see yourself as a victim or you see yourself as, the hero of your story. It really all does come down to mindset, and mindset is the most important thing. And the other thing that came up for me during this recent flare, apart from the whole giving myself permission to stop thing that I talked myself through, was that for me, every time I go through a major flare, it triggers all of the fears that I had when I first became chronically ill. So there's always that feeling of, oh my God, what does this mean? Is this a new disease now? Do I now have a new disease? Is this it first showing? Do I now have something like Crohn's or something like that? Because we know that when you have one autoimmune condition, chances are you are going to develop more. So I have currently 3. I have been living with undiagnosed thyroid autoimmune disease for decades of my life, probably since childhood. I can sort of trace it back through symptoms and things to that. And because we adapt, I just adapted, and I just thought I was a lazy, unmotivated person for most of my life. So we adapt to things. We adapt to things. That is both our blessing and our curse as human beings. So, the chances are that I could develop another autoimmune condition, and I really would prefer that not to happen. Like I don't want any more. But that fear always gets triggered. And I think when we get a major flare, there's always that fear as well. Oh my God, does this mean now I'm going to go backwards? Does this mean I'm going to get worse? Does this mean this period of where I've been, being able to be productive, and I've been able to set myself routines, and I've been able to, have a schedule and stick to it, all of those different sorts of things that I've been enjoying, does that mean that they're gone now and I'm going to have this massive setback and I'm going to have to try and claw my way back, and maybe I can never get back there? So all of this stuff comes up and it gets triggered, and then you need to deal with it. And the way that I deal with it is I step in with reassurance, because one of the things we tend to do is that when other people are frightened, or other people are confused, or other people are hurt or upset, we are so good and so generous at comforting them, right? Offering them comfort, offering them reassurance, telling them how amazing they are, all of those different kind and loving things that we do. But with ourselves, we attack ourselves and we scare ourselves, and we sit there and tell ourselves all of these scary stories about how, yes, this is the start of the end. And yes, it's only going to get worse from here. And yes, you're probably sitting here with a new autoimmune condition right now. And that means, you're going to get even worse. And that means you're never going to feel as good as you did before. And that means you're just going to go backwards. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on until we end up depressing ourselves and terrifying ourselves and creating so much fear and anxiety and stress. And of course, what happens with stress, right? Stress creates more inflammation, more symptoms, feeling worse, brain fog increases. It's an awful downhill cycle, and it's one that you want to stop. So I want to invite you to think about giving yourself permission to stop when you need to. And all of those things now that you think are so essential, or all of the people that are relying on you or depending on you, or you don't want to disappoint them, or you don't want to hurt them, or you don't want to upset them in case they get angry with you or upset with you or reject you, I want to ask you this question. Why are you making their needs so much important than your own, when you have so much riding on this? You have so much to lose. Like it or not, you are living with chronic illness, which means life has changed, which means you need to take such good care of yourself. And when you take really good care of yourself, when you start paring away all of the things that are not really necessary and are not really non-negotiable, and you give yourself permission to stop, then everybody in your life, you even more so, are going to be getting the benefits of that. And the benefits of that can be absolutely profound, right? Absolutely powerful and positive and profound. And it's an ongoing process. But the more you do it, the better you're going to feel, and you are going to lose a whole lot of guilt, and you are going to lose a whole lot of pressure, and you are going to enjoy more peace, right? More peace, and everything in your life is going to improve as a result of you looking after yourself. So think about, what do you want to stop? You'll generally know the things you want to stop because you're already resenting them. And that's a big sign. So think about the things that you're resenting. Think about the things you could stop doing for other people. Start to think about giving yourself permission to put yourself first, because that really is going to change so many things in a powerful, positive way for you. It is not just okay to stop, it is absolutely necessary to stop when you feel your health declining, when you're going into a flare, when you know that you need to rest. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you have, please make sure that you like and you subscribe. And if you would love to leave a review, I would absolutely love that. The more reviews I get, that means the more people that I can reach. Remember, you can get your free discovery session with me. You can book that in from my website, emotionalautoimmunity.com. You can also do it over at my Facebook page, and on my Instagram page, there is also a link in my bio where you can do the booking from there. You can also sign up for my newsletter, be one of my VIPs. My VIPs are always the first to know about all the things that have been published. They're always the first to know about any special offers that I have, and I do occasionally do that. And they're the first to know about anything new, like new products or a new course, online course that I'm in the process of developing. So you can sign up for that over at my website as well. There is a sign up form at the bottom of each page, and there is one right in the middle of the home page. And what you'll get is my free gift for signing up for my VIP list. You'll get my Moving Through the Grief of Chronic Illness ebook that is going to walk you through step by step every single emotional feeling and response that you go through from pre-diagnosis all the way down to acceptance and resilience and everything in between. So it's really going to help you understand that how you're feeling is absolutely normal, and you'll see exactly where you are, what stage you're at. So it can be very reassuring to read, and it can also be good to share with your partners and your family, so they start to get a little bit of an idea of just how much chronic illness has changed your life. So I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another podcast on another emotional issue about the challenges that happen when you are living with chronic illness. So thanks for watching. If you're watching this on my YouTube, thanks for listening, and bye for now.